over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff going on over there at the website. I've been busy here so far last night and this morning. My Week 2 college football power ratings have been posted, including all of my spreads for the Week 2 matchups that are coming up here beginning on Friday. Also over there at the website, posted my opening line report for Week 2 of the college football season and Week 1 of the NFL season. NFL starts on Thursday night here. Green Bay and Chicago in that one. Whole mess of games on Sunday. 2 Monday night football games for us to discuss here on the program. So the NFL getting underway. We'll talk as much of that as we possibly can here this week. Look, once again, those lines have been up since late May, early June, in some cases even earlier than that. So, a lot of movement out there in the marketplace already. But once again, as limits increase, as people get back to betting on football, we'll see some of those NFL line movers here this week. So we'll have tons and tons of stuff to discuss, not just here on Bang the Book Radio, but also over at BangTheBook.com. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Last week I was out in Vegas, as you know, sounded a little bit different here doing the shows, but had to go out there and sign up for the Super Contest, the Circa Million, and the Golden Nugget Ultimate Football Challenge. All 3 of those contests beginning here this week. Signed up with our proxy, Vegas Maddie and Tony over at footballcontest.com. Great to catch up with them. They do such a phenomenal job. It is not an easy job being a proxy for so many contestants out there in those contests. And, of course, now this year, adding the Circa Million to the mix, Maddie and Tony just do such a phenomenal job there with all of the clients that they have. They've been great for us here on Bang the Book, or at BangTheBook.com, I should say, over the last several years. I have no doubt that they'll be great for you. So Vegas, Maddie, and Tony over at footballcontest.com, our preferred proxy service for all the contests that are going on out in Las Vegas. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and take a look here at what's going on in the world of Major League Baseball. Haven't talked a whole lot of baseball here of late. Quite frankly, I gave up on baseball for the season, as you know, probably about 2.5 weeks ago or so. It just wasn't working out for me. And, it's something that you really have to do, something you really have to consider with football season coming up. Wanted to make sure that I had my attentions fully focused on that. So kind of cut baseball off, get rid of that festering wound that I had been dealing with all season long. That being said, still paying attention to it, still following along with it. I do some different radio spots and stuff like that where I do get asked about Major League Baseball. So go ahead and take a look at what's happening around the big leagues here right now. And I'll start with an easy one. The Cleveland Indians dropping 3 straight here to the Tampa Bay Rays. Yeah, they have the second wild card right now by a half a game over the Oakland A's, but a really bad look for the Tribe. And, this is an Indians team that has really padded its record and padded its run differential and some of its statistics against really bad teams this season. When they've stepped up in class, they haven't played particularly well. And this has kind of been a thing for them over the last several years. They've taken advantage of a really, really bad Central Division. They have had issues when they've faced some better competition. Here it is, once again this season. They are 59-26 against teams with a losing record. That is the best mark in baseball. Minnesota is second at 58-21. But the Indians are 20-32 against teams 500 or better. And when you look around Major League Baseball, and there are a lot of bad teams in the big leagues here this season, the number of teams with fewer wins against teams that are 500 or better, 1. The Detroit Tigers. They are 17-53 against teams 500 or better. You've got the Mariners, at 20-49. So this is a situation where, where the Indians just not playing well at all against decent or good teams. Again, that is a very sad statistic because the appearance, the illusion is that the Indians are a good team. I don't think they are. I don't think they're that good of a team. And look, obviously without Jose Ramirez right now, that's certainly a problem. And yes, they've only played 52 games against teams with a winning record, which is one of the lowest numbers in baseball, if not the lowest. So look, it is one of those instances where you do have some sample size issues here, but they're a good team that beats up on bad teams, but they're not a good team when they step up in class, play comparable competition, which is what is asked of you in the playoffs. So maybe they get there. Maybe they do get the second wild card spot, but it's really hard to call them a good team given what they've done here against comparable or better competition. And look, I get it. You can only play the teams that are on the schedule in front of you, but I'm really disappointed with how this season has played out. And it's hard to say that about a team that's 21 games over 500, but, I looked at some futures type stuff for them, and, it's been a bust. I took a piece of them at the All-Star break to win the World Series, expecting them to, maybe not necessarily challenge the Twins, but at least put themselves in a good position for the wild card. And they have done that, and that bet's not dead in the water. Maybe I'll get a chance to hedge against it in a wild card game. But you have to look at this team and really wonder just how far they can go. And it's going to lead to a really interesting offseason for them. At least the Twins, who are scoring 6 runs per game, have the chance to maybe outscore some of the better teams that are out there. For the Indians, though, look, when they step up in class, they look like a completely different team. And I don't know why that's the case. I don't know if it's a preparation issue. I don't know what it is. But the nice thing for them is that they don't have a lot of good teams left on the schedule here in the month of September. But now all of a sudden they find themselves 5.5 back from the Twins. They do have 6 head-to-head meetings. They have to go at least 5-1 to give themselves a chance here in this division race. So I don't know. I don't know what happens with the Indians going forward. But on the plus side yesterday, Carlos Carrasco coming back from leukemia, a phenomenal scene there down in Tampa Bay. When he gets his first appearance back at home, it'll be something really special. But, look, as you look around the big leagues right here, excuse me, I don't know what the issue is here with that. It's still a case of the haves and the have-nots. The Yankees 90-48, Twins 84-52, Astros 89-49. The Yankees and the A's the Yankees and the Astros, excuse me. Damn, I guess it's Labor Day for me here too. The Yankees and the A's both have 10-game leads over teams that could very well be in that wild card game. Tampa Bay certainly looks like they're going to be. We'll see if the Indians are able to hold off Oakland. But that's astonishing to me that you've got a Yankees and an Astros team that are so far above 2 legitimate playoff contenders. It is remarkable the seasons that those 2 teams are having. And it's becoming a similar thing out in the West, or out in the National League, where you've got the Dodgers in the West, 89-50. They're 18 up on the Diamondbacks, who have played pretty well here of late. You've got the Braves, who are 5.5 ahead of the Nationals. Nationals are surging right now, but so are the Braves. The Braves have not had any let-up. You've got to give them a lot of credit for that. And then in the Central Division, whoever wins that, the Cardinals or the Cubs, could be a live team here come playoff time. But, still, it's one of those things where both of those teams so far below the Braves and Dodgers and really far below the Nationals as well, in my estimation. So as we look around at the futures board, I don't think that there's a whole lot of value at this point in time because the top tier is so clearly well-defined in both leagues. I think we just don't really have the opportunity to go out there and take advantage of any futures prices. So, I think in that respect, it does make September a little bit of a disappointing month for betting on baseball. And look, let's run through some numbers here. In the month of August, favorites overall, 252 and 154, 62.1%. If you bet $100 on every favorite in the month of August, you were up about $1,500. Favorites of minus 125 or higher, 216 and 106, 67.1%. If you bet $100 on every favorite of minus 125 or higher, you were up $3,378. Once again, per the Killer Sports database, they use 5 Dimes closing numbers for their grading purposes. If you bet every favorite of minus 150 or higher, 146 and 58, 71.6%. $100 bettors up $2,914. If you bet favorites of minus 180 or higher, how about this number? Favorites of minus 180 or higher, 111 and 25. 81.6%. $100 bettors up $4,745. Again, that's going from the killersports.com database. I mean, look, big chalk wins. And that's just what Major League Baseball is at this point in time. It is a sport where big chalk is winning. It is a sport without a lot of parity right now. The big favorites are winning a lot, and the big favorites are the playoff teams. For the most part, the playoff teams. The Dodgers, the Astros, the A's, the Yankees, the Braves. The Braves have been facing some big numbers here, even though they don't have a great starting staff by any means. The Nationals, with their elite starting rotation. It's just one of those things now in baseball where the trick to winning betting baseball, and I've talked about this before, and it's good to revisit it here again, to be overcapitalized and play big favorites. I mean, that's just it. And I understand that a lot of people can't do that because it can be a little bit scary. You bet all these minus 250, minus 270 type favorites. If one of them loses, it feels like it's a crippling type of thing. But with the rate at which these are cashing, I mean, look, we're talking about, again, using 5 dimes closing numbers here in the month of August, betting minus 180 or higher favorites with a 14% ROI. It's crazy. So I imagine this will probably continue in the month of September. I certainly have to expect that to be the case. You look at last year, for example, in Major League Baseball, favorites of minus 180 or higher in the month of August came in at 72.3%, 99 and 38. Also interesting to point out that there were more games here with the big favorites in this year's month of August as opposed to last year's. But once again, big favorites showing a good profit there in the month of August last year. So, it's one of those things where it's just the nature of the beast now in Major League Baseball. You look at last year in the month of September. How about this? Minus 180 or higher favorites in 2018 for the month of September. 94 and 28, 77%. If you bet $100 on each one of those minus 180 or higher favorites, you were plus $3,245. So last year, similar setup. You did get roster expansion, but you also had a major league landscape that was very top heavy. So the minus 180 or higher favorites coming in at a 77% clip, big return, 11.5% ROI there on that one. You go back to 2017, 82 and 37, 68.9%, but losing money, minus $45 for $100 bettors that played on all of those games. So this is kind of becoming a thing here, over the last few years where the minus 180 favorites are very, very good. It's been a 5-year positive money trend, but it seems like you've got more teams tanking. You've got more teams that are just outright awful last year and this year. So I would expect, once again, that big favorites in the month of September will be very, very profitable here for you. So again, if you are in a position to be overcapitalized, it's a good opportunity for you. And look, we're one day in the month of September, minus 180 or higher favorites yesterday, 4-0. Perfect 4-0. Verlander throws the no-hitter, and none of those games were close. Nationals won 9-3 over the Marlins as a $3 favorite. Rays won 8-2 over the Indians as almost a $2 favorite. And the Twins on the road over the Tigers as over a $2 favorite, win by 5, 8-3. So these weren't even competitive games for the most part yesterday. So that'll be something you want to take a look at here in the month of September. Look at those big favorites, those big, huge favorites. And look, even in some cases, if you feel like you're undercapitalized to play them, then you could just go ahead and take a look at the run lines or at moneyline parlays with these big favorites, because we shouldn't get a whole lot of surprises here in the month of September. Look, are the Yankees up 10 games on the Rays? Yes. Are the Astros up 10 games on the A's? Yes. But those two teams jockeying for home field advantage. The Yankees 1 game better than Houston right now in the race for home field. The Astros are 51 and 17 at home this year. The Yankees are 51 and 21. So there's some incentive. There is some equity in that home field advantage. Plus you get to play the wild card team who has to burn a starting pitcher to get through that game. And who knows, we may even have some ties in the wild card situation where maybe those two teams have to burn a couple of starters before they get to the division series. So there's incentive here for the Astros and the Yankees. And also, they're just better than everybody else. I mean, you can take your foot off the gas, but when you look at these really good teams, the Yankees, the Astros, Braves, Dodgers, their player development and their organizational depth, so strong. The Dodgers just keep rolling out prospects. Doesn't matter who plays for them. They just keep rolling out dudes that perform well. They're 52-18 at home. Looks like they're going to have home field advantage here in the playoffs. 4.5 games up on the Braves for that. But they're still playing. Maybe they've run into some hiccups here at times. But, they're still going to go out there and win in big favorite roles. Braves and Nationals, same thing. Those are two teams that are really on great paces right now, combined 17-3 over the last 20 games. That's just it right now. I mean, the bad teams are going to keep being bad. They don't have any incentive. They don't have anything to play for except for, trying to go the Houston route and stock up all these high draft picks, hope everybody develops all at once. So this isn't changing. I mean, you look at the Blue Jays yesterday getting no hit by Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's great, but there was maybe one ball in that game that had a chance of being a hit. It took him 3 innings to hit a ball harder than it was pitched. It was astonishing to see what happened with the Blue Jays there, but that's going to be the case here the rest of the way. But even look at a team like the White Sox, competitive for a while. They've dropped 6 straight. They're 16 games under 500. Royals and Tigers, both of them, 90-plus losses already. The Royals need one more, but they will certainly get it. The Mariners, awful since that first little bit in the month of April. Orioles, over 90 losses. Marlins, getting close to 90 losses. The Rockies, they've dropped 9 of 10, 6 in a row. When you're a team that contends for a couple-year period and then you don't, you fall off the face of the earth, much like Colorado has here this season. So, again, try to be overcapitalized in baseball for the month of September. I know it's hard with the NFL and college football going on, but that's the thing right now in Major League Baseball. Just play the big favorites, and again, it's not sexy. It's not fun. It takes, some of the handicapping intrigue out of it, but that's just been it, man. The big favorites have cashed at such a high rate, and whether you play it in a parlay context, maybe try some run lines, or you're just outright betting these big favorites. And look, we've got a ton of them here today. You look up and down the Major League Baseball card here today for the minus 180 favorites. You've got Wainwright against the Giants. You've got Buehler against the Rockies. Tanaka against the Rangers. Minnesota was there. They're not there now. They are there at some shops. Or actually, they are there. Excuse me. I'm looking at minus 200. Over minus 180, the Twins are there against the Tigers today. Rays are there against the Orioles. Indians are there against the White Sox. Braves are there against the Blue Jays. Cubs are there against the Mariners. And Houston is probably going to get there with Garrett Cole. So you look up and down the card for today. What do we got? 10, 11 games? And 8, 9 of them have favorites of $1.80 or higher? Probably going to be a theme here, especially this week when you look around at some of the series that we do have in play. So, again, the minus 180 favorites, very, very profitable in Major League Baseball here this season. So, it just is what it is. Like I said, it's not sexy. It can be scary because you're putting big chunks of your bankroll out there on these heavy favorites. But just the nature of the beast right now as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. And you know what? We just have to make the adjustment. And the adjustment at this point in time is to lever up your bankroll and go ahead and play those teams until we see something change. And when you look at the landscape of Major League Baseball going into 2020, what's going to change? The Blue Jays still don't have pitching. The Orioles are still a multi-year rebuild. The White Sox have some pitching if guys like Michael Kopech come back, but we don't know that. The Royals, they're not going to be any better. The Tigers aren't going to be any better. The Angels still have serious pitching concerns. The Mariners aren't going to be much better. The Marlins are still bad. The Pirates, they're in a total state of dysfunction. Who knows what happens with that team going forward? Really, the NL West is the only one where you can see the gap closing, where the Padres are young and talented. They're graduating some prospects to the big leagues, both on the pitching side and the position player side. But are they going to run down the Dodgers? I don't think so. So I would guess that next year, it's the same thing. It's big favorites coming through. That's just what the game has become. So keep that in mind and make your adjustments accordingly. And like I said, it means that you probably have to lever up your bankroll a little bit in order to compete right now in the current Major League Baseball landscape. All right, so I want to spend a few minutes talking about the NFL here. Obviously, NFL starts on Thursday night, Packers and Bears in that one. Some really good games in week one. You got Falcons and Vikings is a good game. Bills and Jets should be a good one. 49ers and Buccaneers, will get a good look at both of those teams. Kansas City and Jacksonville, the Nick Foles debut against Pat Mahomes in a high-octane offense. Rams and Carolina is a good game. You got Pittsburgh and New England and Sunday Night Football. We got some pretty strong games here on the card for week one of the NFL. So let's talk for a minute here about the market and what we can expect. These lines have been up, as I mentioned, since mid-May, late May, early June, depending on the sports book that you're looking at. So they've been up for a long time. And we saw some waves of moves based on, how teams expect free agents to affect these teams and, the teams that we think are going to be pretty good. We saw some correlation with some season win total movement and what's going on out there in the market. But now, limits get bigger. Over the summer, you're dealing with lower limits. Once we get to game week, limits increase on Monday, increase again Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the book. And then, of course, heading on into the weekend, they get as high as they're going to be. So, yes, we've seen some movement. We've seen some hands tipped from some bettors out there. Seems like Atlanta, maybe a little bit of a sharp side in week one. Buffalo, maybe a little bit of a sharp side. Baltimore, clearly a sharp side in week one against Miami. Jacksonville's been a sharp side. I think that Carolina is popping up as a sharp side now with the +3 and the extra juice. Detroit has been a sharp side. I think we probably wind up seeing the Giants as a little bit of a sharp side as well. And in fact, some of the 7s out there may be gone sooner rather than later. So we're starting to see the NFL market take shape. And we will see some line moves today. We will see some line moves once again on Tuesday. Thursday, Friday, we'll see some as well. Then certainly as we head on into game week. And one of the nice things about this week in the NFL is that by and large, because of how the preseason was handled by a lot of these coaches, a lot of these teams are very healthy. Now, of course, we do have some injury considerations. You've got A.J. Green out for Cincinnati. You've got, obviously, Andrew Luck retiring because of injury. So we do have some injury considerations here in the marketplace. But by and large, these teams are healthy. So that's a good thing. So we don't have to wait for, Friday practice reports and all that to see who's going to play and who's not going to play. So that's a good thing. So we will probably see some early movement here in the markets for the NFL. And keep in mind, too, not all early week moves in the NFL are sharp, true positions. They are sharp moves because the public doesn't really get involved until game day or maybe the day before the game. But one thing we will see a lot more in the NFL than we see in college is massaging of the market. Because in theory, the NFL should be tighter. Games hugging closer to key numbers. I mean, you look here at week one, not a single game in double digits across the market. You look at week one in college football, you've got some huge lines. I mean, this week Alabama's a 54-point favorite against New Mexico State. So you see a lot more massaging around these key numbers to where you may see some early week limit bets come in from some very deep-pocketed syndicates or, personal bettors or hedge funds or whatever else. You may see some big moves come in on some of these games early in the week to massage those numbers. Because when you talk about a market as tight as the NFL, every half point is so important. Every 5 or 10 cents of juice is so important. So you're going to see some of these scenarios where, these lines move up a little bit or move down a little bit as a setup for later in the week. In college football, the number grabs are the number grabs, and those are generally truer positions. In the NFL, you're going to see these positions where someone's going to move a number a little bit in a preferred direction to come back on the other side with a bigger limit bet later in the week. It happens all the time. A lot of massaging like that happens, especially because of the importance, as I just mentioned, of key numbers. So you look at a game like 465, 466, Tennessee and Cleveland, I think that could be one where you see a little bit of Cleveland money maybe drive that number up to 6. We have seen that at bookmaker and Bovada here already. Maybe a little bit of money drives that number up to 6. Maybe you try to push it a little bit more to 6.5 and then come back in on Tennessee. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm just using that game to illustrate a point where this is what happens in the NFL market, where you will see some guys have a target number and they want to get there, and they'll do everything they can to get to that target number. Because keep in mind, look, you may massage the market early in the week. Let's say that you make a $10,000 bet to try and nudge a number from 5.5 up to 6. Well, maybe later in the week you come back on it at 15,000 or at 20,000. At 6, 6.5, something like that. The position that you really wanted to take. You would hope certainly to see a 6.5, where you've got a chance of the game landing 6 and you hit both. If you get your preferred side, you make money. If it comes on the other side, well, you don't lose your full bet amount. You don't lose $20K, you lose $10K. So that's what a lot of these big respected outlets are going to do here for the NFL market, is try to mitigate losses, but also try to move lines to where their target numbers are. You will see this a lot here in the NFL, and that's what some of those early week moves are. So they're not necessarily true positions, but they're ways of trying to move the market, massage the market around. Now, we may not see as much of it here in week 1 because these numbers have been up for so long, but we'll see it in week 2 through week 17, where the setup, as it's called, trying to get some of these numbers to move around. And also, too, you hope for overreactions from some of the other outlets in the marketplace. Every book is going to interpret sharp action and apply it differently. Some books may overcompensate for that activity, and that's what some of those sharper outlets are waiting for. They're hoping that one book or a couple books overreact to that early week move on air maybe a little bit too much because they're not the ones getting hit, and then it creates an opportunity out there in the market. The NFL is truly a numbers game. I think in college football, because of the talent gaps, you see those true positions. There's more of a handicap of the game, I think. In the NFL, a lot of people believe that it's a numbers game, where it's all about getting those half points around key numbers and things of that sort. Now, the two markets are very different. At their cores, they're both football, but the two markets are very, very different. Had a quick question I wanted to touch on here from a listener. Asked if I was doing the Monday mailbag, and that's certainly something we can do here on Mondays over the course of the season. Brian, via email, says, from my understanding in the NFL, the first thing odds makers do is create the money line based off of win probability, and from that percentage, the spread is created. Do you know if that's also how spreads are created in college football? Well, I reached out to an odds maker friend that I know, and typically odds makers don't necessarily do it that way. A lot of modelers do it that way. So individual bettors will put everything into their models, create a money line, a percentage likelihood of winning the game, convert that to a spread, and then bet accordingly that way. Odds makers don't necessarily do that. By and large, they look at power ratings for the NFL, much like they do for college football, set a spread that way, have a money line that makes sense, then of course they'll move it around as they need to. So that's what the modeling crowd will do. They will put all of their information into their spreadsheets or into their scripts or whatever it is that they're doing. They get a win probability, convert that over to a spread, and then bet the spread based on that. Odds makers don't necessarily do it that way. Maybe some do, or maybe there's some kind of influence with some of the odds teams, with guys who do it that way. But by and large, they're doing it the same way we do it for college football, putting together power ratings and then coming up with a spread. And, of course, there's some other factors that go into it. They know their clienteles. They have an idea of where lines are going to move, so they may shade them a little bit that way. There's more that goes into it than just a power ratings number when you're on the other side of the counter, and you have to factor in where the action may come in, what your clientele is like, what your clientele did the previous week. Whereas for us, we're just looking at putting together power ratings, creating a spread, and going from there. So my guests here, I don't know if any of them do the modeling thing where they create a win probability, then convert it to a spread for college football or the NFL. I would say no. But that is a tactic that you can use out there if you are a modeler. You come up with your win probability, treat it like the baseball market. Your win probability is this. You make your money line this. The spread is therefore that. And then you go with it from there. So It is something that can be done, but I don't think it's the way that odds makers operate with the NFL market. Again, maybe some people out there do, or maybe there are some members of the odds team who do it that way and do have respected opinions. But, as we look around the current state of affairs out there in the marketplace, I don't think that that's the way that it's done. But it's a great question. And again, it is something where maybe you can create some opportunity as a personal bettor, having a model, having some sort of spreadsheet system where you create a win probability and then bet into that spread, which, of course, as we know, the spreads are correlated to the win probability and the money line. So good question there from Brian. If you ever have questions for me for the Monday Mailbag or otherwise, at Skating Tripods on Twitter, Adam at BangTheBook.com. And also, too, if there are games that you want us to touch on specifically with any of my guests, hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to crowdsource opinions on a game of interest. I'm happy to take suggestions and requests for games. A lot of times I just pick some games I find interesting to talk about with my specific guests. But if it's a game that you specifically want to know about, or specifically want to hear a certain guest's take on that game, feel free. At Skating Tripods on Twitter, Adam at BangTheBook.com. I have no problem doing that. I have no problem whatsoever with getting some audience participation here on the show because, look, there are a lot of games, and sometimes there's a game that somebody wants to hear about that I just can't get to because we've got, I think I was talking with Brad Powers yesterday. I think between FBS games and FBS versus FCS this week, there are 84 college football games. We're not going to get to all of them here on the show. We're not even going to get to all the FBS games on the show. So if there are any of those games that you do want to discuss, at Skating Tripods on Twitter, Adam at BangTheBook.com, I'll definitely find a way to work those into the rotation, whether it's with the guests that you want to hear break the game down or just one of the guests that I get to talk about that game. So again, at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at BangTheBook.com.